Welcome to the Gabrielle Lara Show, a podcast created for the new and aspiring entrepreneur who's navigating the messy middle part of their entrepreneurial journey. I'm your host, Gabrielle. I'm a niche expert and a sales coach who helps coaches like you find your niche and sell in a way that's authentic to you so that you can have a thriving business. I'll be inviting entrepreneurs from all walks of life onto these episodes to share their story of how they went from an aspiring entrepreneur to a CEO and all the messy parts they navigated in between so that you do not feel alone on this journey. Sit back, relax, and stay a while because you are more than welcome here. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Gabrielle Lara Show, where I have been sharing just really fun stories from entrepreneurs from all walks of life and how they navigated the messy middle so that you don't feel so alone in your journey while you're going through whether it's a healing journey, whether you're trying to get your business off the ground, whatever that looks like for you, so that you can really feel more seen and heard and know that people's journeys aren't linear. They don't just wake up one day and make it like everyone on Instagram makes it seem like. So today I invited my friend Katrina onto today's show where she's really going to walk us through her story of where she was to where she is now. So hello, Katrina, and welcome.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me on here. I'm really excited to kind of talk through everything today.
I'm pumped. I can't wait to hear your story. I can't wait to get to know you better. And I'm super excited for the value that my audience is about to get, and they're going to get to know you, which is really exciting. So let's just dive on into it. Like, what is your story? What is the story of Katrina and how she started her business? Like, where were you before where you are now?
Yeah, definitely. So, for everyone listening, I am a business coach. I primarily focus in on alignment, strategy, and community. So, for everyone who's listening who knows Gabrielle, you know that we have some very similar focuses, we'll say. But I really started my business even before I became a life coach. Or a business coach. I was a life coach. And really, that was a culmination of so many of my personal experiences. And it's kind of funny to talk about it now because I think back to when I was, I don't know, we'll even just say like 6 years ago. If anyone had told me that I would be an entrepreneur, I would have laughed in their face. I would have been like, yeah, sure. At that point in time in my life, I was like, the work that I do is fine. It's semi-related to things that I'm kind of interested in. And it was very much this like, I am working for a paycheck. I am working for, at that point in time, I was like, one day I want to be a stay-at-home mom. So I'm working up until that moment can happen in my life. And it's kind of crazy now because when I think back on that, I'm like, my life is so different now. But I actually started out in magazine journalism. I'm a big like reading fan. I have a entire bookstagram outside of just my like entrepreneur Instagram. It's one of my biggest passions. It has been almost my entire life, and part of that is also tied to the fact that like I'm a really fast reader, so I can read a lot of books, and it brings me a lot of joy. And so when I was younger, I was like, okay, so what's something that's like like an English degree is not going to get me anywhere. So what's something that I can actually do? And journalism was like the recommended answer from all of my advisors and teachers and just like mentors. And I think that it's a great example for even me to look back on and say, like, hey, these are the moments when we are taught as a society that the things that are aligned with us aren't actually necessarily what's going to make money or what's going to be successful in the future. And so I started out my professional career as a journalist. I worked specifically for digital magazines, so the websites that they had in addition to the magazines. So think Better Homes and Gardens. You search chicken recipe, you show up and you get content I have created. And I loved it because I love cooking and I love food, but it wasn't exactly correct. And for me, being in a huge corporation like the one I was in for almost, I want to say 5 years, 4 or 5 years, you see so much of what makes people hate working, right? You see I got laid off from Meredith Corporation 4 different times in 4 or 5 years. So I was jumping from title to title. I worked in their in-house marketing department. I worked in their test kitchen for a while. I was doing so many different things because they would all of a sudden, everyone at this level is laid off. Okay, cool. Now this entire magazine is getting dissolved. Okay, cool. So it's like I never went more than maybe a week in between these different positions because I had so many connections within this one company. But that still meant that there was always this threat looming over you of you could be let go at any point in time. And so when I had my last layoff, which is where they literally got rid of every single person at my level at the company. And let me tell you, Meredith Corporation is huge. It's huge. It is Midwest Living. It is Better Homes and Gardens. If you think of the Better Homes and Gardens brand, there's also Better Homes and Gardens real estate. There's Better Homes and Gardens product in Walmart stores. Like there are in-house marketing departments. That's Ladies Home Journal. Like it's a humongous corporation. And they laid off every single person at our level. And that was one of those situations where I was like, okay, I can choose what I'm doing from here on out. I still loved my department. I loved the work I was doing. And so I went to be a full-time freelancer. So just to recap, I went from a humongous company to a full-time freelancer. And I freelanced for a year, still writing about the things that I was writing about beforehand. I was in the food, holidays, and entertainment department. And then I also started writing for home, like interior design. And from there, Meredith Corporation is based in Des Moines, Iowa, for anyone listening who does not understand all of that. I did not want to live in Des Moines, Iowa for my entire life. I'm originally from Minnesota. I currently live in Minneapolis. I used freelancing full time as an excuse to say, hey, you can't require me to come into this office and work here. You cannot require me to do the things you could when I was an employee. I'm moving back. So all of my family was here. I had a lot of friends here in Minneapolis. And so I used that as an opportunity to move back. And well, you move to a new city and you're freelancing full time. And what do you do with your time? For everyone listening, I'm a huge extrovert. I am a people person. I told you, like, my business incorporates a lot of community. I'm all about making connections, building genuine relationships with people, and genuine friendships with the people I'm connecting with. And so working as a freelancer full time was so boring for me because I could not connect to anyone. I could not talk to anyone. And so at that point in time, I decided, hey, I'm going to actually get another full-time job. I'm going to get my benefits covered again, right? This was when I was 25-ish, I want to say. I was still on my parents' health insurance. That was going to come to a close shortly. And so I decided I am going to get another full-time job. I'm going to have some place to go every single day. I'm going to have people to talk to every single day. I'm going to have the work environment that I wanted. And of course, I did not get the work environment that I wanted. I got a full-time job, but there was just as much corporate bureaucracy and politics and just like, honestly, like petty conversations. And I was working for a very small company doing as a marketing specialist and social media manager. And so I realized while I was there, through probably what was the worst 6 months of my life, incredibly toxic work environment. In 1 year, out of 35 employees, they fired 17, or 17 were fired or laid off or quit, I should specify. So if that gives you an idea. And again, I loved the work I was doing. I loved some of the people I was working with, but I was like, you know what? I did the big corporation thing. I did the freelance thing. I did the small company thing. They all sucked for me. I'm going to be really honest with everyone. So I was basically at a point in my life where I was like, I have for the last 6 months been depressed. I showed up for work late every single day because I hated going into my office. Every single member of my department, there were 8 of us, were made cry in the office in like different conversations and settings. And I just knew that if I continued at this job, I would be miserable. And it was one of those situations where I had known for a couple months, but we talk about this in the business world where there is making a decision and then there is making a decision. And I was kind of like, oh, I'm going to look at like maybe a lateral shift. Like maybe I'll go do marketing somewhere else. Like I like talking about this. I like the work that I'm doing. But I kept getting stuck because there was always this understanding that I had that like if I just make a lateral shift, I'm going to feel exactly the same place, just in a different building and with different coworkers. And what ended up really happening was at the same time that I was having this work issue, I actually ended up having a blind side in my personal romantic relationship where my partner broke up with me 3 weeks before we were moving in together. And so I was like, all right, guys, I have a terrible work environment. I know I don't want to be there, but I was holding on because we were planning to move in a year. And I was like, I'll just maintain this work until we move out of state in a year. Well, that was no longer the plan. And after spending a solid probably month just being like, I am surviving day to day, I will never forget this. I actually listened to a podcast episode where someone was talking about one of the worst things that had ever happened in their life. And they talked about it as if I had to sit down and decide, again, that like make a decision whether or not I was going to let that be the thing that broke me or the thing that opened doors for me, the thing that made me grow, the thing that forced me to step into a new version of myself. And after listening to that podcast episode, and I had been recommended the book You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero, by someone who's like not in the entrepreneur world whatsoever. It just happened to be the timing. I basically had decided to sit down and say, okay, if I don't want this for my life, if I don't want to like be a sheep essentially and just continue moving on autopilot and not actually driving my life in the direction I want it to end up in, what would that look like? How would that work for me? How could I make that happen? And I ended up sitting down and saying, like, it's so funny because these are some of the questions I now ask my coaching clients. But I was like, what are the moments when I like who I am? And what are the moments when I don't like who I am? I love who I am when I'm hosting a party. I love who I am when I am having a great conversation with someone. I don't like who I am when I'm sitting in 45 minutes of a commute each way every single day. I like who I am when I'm spending time with my family and when I'm genuinely helping other people. I don't like who I am when I'm sitting at a desk making executive decisions, knowing we're taking the opposite action of what would actually serve our clients, right? It's pretty it's a pretty eye-opening question to start asking yourself. And it made me realize that the best compliment I had ever gotten in my entire life, at least at that point in time, that made me feel like the most lit up, the most myself, was this idea of you know how to make someone naturally feel welcome and supported without ever doing anything. And it was like, yeah, it was the most meaningful for me at that time. And I was just like, wow, like that feels so good. That makes me feel so seen. That makes me feel so like expansive and bubbly and light. And so I asked myself, how can I do that for a living? How can I make money where I'm genuinely just like making people feel good? Because that's something I can get passionate about. That's something I can get behind. Like trying to make this company that I don't have a stake in more money, that's not really something I can get behind. But working with someone like face to face and having an actual impact on their life and making them feel good in the moments when we're interacting with one another, that feels fun. That feels like something that's satisfying to me. And so that's essentially what sparked me starting my business. And I started as a life coach because I was initially like, I want to give people this feeling. It doesn't matter who the person is, I can do it. And I did that for a while and it was fine. But I had all of this professional background in digital writing and editing and search engine optimization and email marketing and sales funnels and social media and all of the things. And it ended up being like the people I was helping, I slowly started giving them strategy in addition to the mindset, in addition to the support, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's when I really made the shift to say, like, no, I'm a business coach. I just take a very holistic approach where you really focus on your mind and your mindset more than anything else, on alignment. And it's also like, as I'm saying this, I'm like, Gabrielle, I niched down,
Yay.
we'll say.
We love that. We love it.
Yes. I mean, like, I know exactly who my audience is now. When I first started my business, I was like, I'll help all the
Right.
people, which we all do.
Always.
But
Yep. 100%. Like I feel like you don't own a business like unless you've done that at some point in your life.
right, right. And it's been something that I'm now 5 years in. I have really evolved my business. I have had that first year where I was like, I'm living off of my savings. I am not bringing in a ton of clients yet. And I've had months when I've been like so excited and so proud of how much money I've made. But the thing that has really stuck through all of it is that initial goal that I had, that people first, that human first approach, that I'm getting the chance to make someone feel better about themselves every single day. Like I can't, I, this, like that's why I can't ever see myself going back to a 9 to 5 job. Not because it's like I have the freedom and I have the lifestyle. It's because I really can see the effects of what I am doing every single day. And that's really freaking awesome.
Oh my goodness. I just want to like jump through the screen and give you a hug. That is just, it's such an interesting story because, and if you guys are watching this on YouTube, then you see our faces. But like the whole time I was just like, it's so wild how it just makes sense, how it just evolves.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
you were laid off 4 times. I used to work at a magazine too. I feel like we're very aligned in
Yeah.
our stuff. I used to work at a magazine. It was a small magazine in Boston, but holy toxic work environment. Holy
Yep.
toxic work
Mm-hmm.
environment. That was my first job where I was ever, well, like my first like adult 9 to 5. And I was like, this can't be it. And it seems like you just like
Yep.
had that too. Like, why work so hard to just like make somebody else money when it's not serving
Oh,
you?
yeah.
Your values aren't being like appreciated in this work. And it is truly, truly mind blowing. But what I love so much of that story, and I wrote it down here, is like when you started off as a life coach, right? But then you realize like it was great, like it was fun, but I
Mm-hmm.
had so much more to bring to the table. And
Mm-hmm.
this is what I mean, like, your niche comes from your story, like, when you own that, when you own all the SEO background, the writing, like, marketing, sales funnels, all of that, like, you would have been playing small by I don't wanna say just being a life coach because that's not the way to put it, but, like, you
Right.
had more to bring to the table. And it seems like your intuition was really knocking at the door where it was like, "Okay, Katrina, like, let's do a little pivot here." Walk us through that. Like, was that hard for you to kind of come to terms with, or did you just gracefully be like, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to start offering my people more. I'm going to position myself a little bit differently.
It's been interesting. And I'm glad you asked that question because I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs, when we start our businesses, like it really is exactly what I was saying, right? You have that passion, you have that thing that you love to do. I was very lucky that I had my marketing background. So I had that coming into starting my business. I also made the decision when I first decided to be a life coach to work with a coach for the first 4 months of my business to get that foundation, to get that confidence up. Um, it allowed me to start my business without a ton of that imposter syndrome. So when I started my business, the first clients that I really had were very much friends and family. They're very much my community. And like, just to like also have a side note, like this is why we talk about alignment so much, you
Yeah.
and I do, is like if I look at the three main parts of my business, alignment, like strategy and community, those are like
Yeah.
that's me. That's
Yeah.
what I do.
Yeah.
That's who I am. That's like what I'm
Yeah.
obsessed with. And so it was very, very natural for me to use my community, and I still do this to get the majority of my clients, to get the majority of the people who I work with, just because I know those people. Like, if we have a connection or if I know them myself, I know how our work is going to go together. And so I started out working with entrepreneurs immediately. Like, I think of one of my first clients was someone who quit my job with me. We had our last day the same day for that like small business that was really toxic. And she was one of my first clients, and she has worked with me again for almost five
Oh, that's
years.
beautiful.
Like,
That's awesome.
it's been so fun. And the thing that's like really crazy and but like not crazy at all at the same time is we just magically we had been working in a marketing setting originally together at this company. She's a photographer. It was so easy for me to like for us to bounce ideas off of each other and for me to give her like strategy tips or like you could do this for your business or inspiration. And so it happened very naturally. I also worked with a lot of artists right in the beginning. A lot of artists, again, you know how to create your art, but you aren't necessarily the person who has a ton of marketing background, who knows how to build a website, who knows how to show up on social media, who can do all of that work. And it was so interesting when I first started that I naturally was attracted to these people anyway. And looking back on it, it's like it's totally alignment. It was I was working with the right people. I was leaning into who I am and how I operate and what I love doing. And it really allowed me to say, like, oh, I'm doing this literally in every single conversation. And why wouldn't I just like put that on my website as something I offer? And I can always tell when I'm doing a website update. It's because my business has evolved and my website has fallen behind, right? Like my website just hasn't evolved as fast as my business has. I'm doing another one in like the next couple of months where we're redoing the copy because it's just like I love my website. I love what I do, but it's also very much like I naturally just start to lean in when I start to see how things are falling into place or if I'm starting to get more and more aligned. And then I'll take a look back on the last 6 months and be like, oh, I've made a
Yep.
complete shift. Better update the rest of my business
Yeah.
around
And
this.
it's so I wanna highlight that because it's very common, and a lot of people I find from what I've heard in my community is they feel like that's wrong, right? They feel like, "Oh, here's my niche, and in 4 years, it's still gonna be my niche, and it's gonna feel really good." You grow as an individual, your business grows with you, and as your business grows, your website
Yep.
grows, your messaging grows, it's like a train, right? And like you are you are driving that train, you are the conductor and everything follows behind, but it's
Right.
like if something kind of gets out of whack there, like it's normal. It's normal. Like we've all
Yes.
this is the
Yes.
and I love how you're really laying this out, but this is the beauty of owning your own business is like and specifically to like Katrina's journey here is like it's not linear. You're the niche that you have today
Right.
in a couple years, you're probably not going to have the same one. Or if you do have the same one, you've probably expanded it a bit, right? To help more people, to serve more
Mhm.
people because as you grow, who you serve grows too.
Definitely. And like I feel like a really clear example of that is for me as a business coach, right? Everything I learn in my business, I can then apply to all of my
Yeah.
clients' businesses. And it's so fun, but it's also like for instance, I use human design with every single one of my clients. If anyone listening has not heard of human design beforehand, it is a modality similar to Myers-Briggs, Enneagram, all of that kind of stuff. It's a little bit more woo though, if I'm
Mm,
being perfectly honest. But the way I describe it to people is it's a snapshot of who you are before you have any outside
mm.
conditioning. So before you have societal, familial, environmental conditioning, this is how you naturally operate. It's a blueprint to how you naturally make decisions, how you naturally market, how you naturally interact with people around you. All of these things in our lives that we're like, can I just get a blueprint for this? Yes, you can. It's called human design. And when I first discovered my human design, it changed the course of my business. Like 100% absolutely life changing. And it was one of those things that I would sit and talk to every single person about it. I would talk to my family about it, every single friend I came. Like I have pulled so many people's charts because it was so interesting and I could see how that information was so life-changing for me as a business owner, but also me as a human being and as a person. And when I started learning about myself and seeing how when I started making shifts in my business toward that like Katrina before conditioning, Katrina naturally, how I naturally operate, the things that I naturally love doing, my passions and my strengths, everything became so much easier in my business. And it's an excellent example of like your business evolves as you evolve. If I hadn't learned human design, I would have never thought to apply it to business. But I saw how much of a change it made for me. And like, even like a great example for everyone listening, I have in my human design chart all three of the major indicators that someone thrives best in a community setting. There are three big ones. I have all three of them. And it's indicating like that's how I market best. It's indicating that's how I make connections best. It's indicating that's how I make more sales. And I have that, and someone else might not. And if I were as a coach trying to give cookie cutter advice to everyone and just base like how I'm coaching your business based off of how I operate, you're not going to find the success that's true for you because you're going to be finding my version of success. And what I want in life is not the same thing as what you want in life. So it also allowed me in my business to make the shifts to say, okay, I'm primarily doing one-on-one coaching. Let's primarily do like a group / mastermind based coaching, which I do now call the Badass Business Squad. It was saying, oh, like you have been trying XYZ for all of these different marketing tactics. What if you really leaned in on building a strong referral program that really works for you, full of people who you're really, really aligned with? Oh, cool. That feels fun. And when you like get to know yourself and you can have your business be fun and easy, it's like, why wouldn't
Yeah,
you?
absolutely, but and so what we so often we run from that. We run from who we are because we wanna see, "Oh, Katrina on
Hmm.
Instagram, she looks like she's killing it. Let me copy what she does." Right? Because I'll see that. But you said it
Exactly.
perfectly. What you want doesn't necessarily mean that's what I want in my life. Like, we're all our own individuals, and the more that you honor that, honor how you operate, and I love how you take the human design approach to it. Like, how you operate and how you function, that's where you see success. Like that is where it is. It's
Right.
all lying right there. And I'm a little woo too, as everyone listening knows. But like I truly think that like when you operate in that state of alignment, the universe opens doors for you. But the more that you are
Yes.
running from
Yeah.
yourself, right? You're back to your old version. The doors aren't opening for a reason. But the more you close those doors and really step into like your soul and who you truly are, it pops off. Like I see it all the time. And every time I'm like, holy cow. Like it's wild. Like even some people just finding their niche, just like finding their niche. And then the next day they're booking clients. It's like, whoa. Like it really is. People are always like, well, what's the secret? What's the secret? I don't really think there is a secret, but I will say alignment helps you a ton. Like
Oh
alignment helps you a
yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
Don't sleep on
I
alignment, guys.
I talk to people about alignment in terms of like there are three main areas you can get aligned. The first one, as we've been
Yeah.
talking about, is yourself, right? Like I use human design to help people really get aligned with themselves. I really encourage, like, even just if you think about an introvert versus an extrovert, how you're going to handle your business, how you're going to market is going to be so different based off of which of the two you are. But then there's also, as you were talking about with niching, the second one I talk about is being aligned with your clients. And when you figure that out and you get really clear on who your most aligned clients are, like that's just like one more area where you can really, really, like we are saying, like pop off, like get really, really a lot of a momentum behind your business. And then the third one I talk about is environmental alignment. So that can be like the area that you're existing in. That can also be the industry that your like company is existing in, and getting aligned with less of like your industry and more aligned of your place
Yes.
within the industry.
Oh, I love
So
that.
like how are you operating that maybe other people aren't, or how are you operating within like the set structure that other people are, so people can understand what you're doing, et cetera, et cetera. And so like I talk about alignment all the time because when you have like those three magic areas really figured out, it's almost just
Yeah.
like a no-brainer. And it's about
Mhm.
trusting it though, right? It's about trusting what I'm aligned with is right for me. And when we as entrepreneurs, when we talk about imposter syndrome, or we talk about like looking at our competitors and we get really, really excited around like trying to build that for ourselves, that inner confidence, that like I know where I'm going, that doesn't mean that like people still don't like look at other people or
Yep.
like get distracted. But it's having that conviction and making, again, that decision of I'm going to trust that is what is meant for me is what's meant for me, and what's meant for
Mhm.
them is what's meant for them. And when you can really get aligned and get curious about yourself and get curious about your clients and your environment, it becomes so much easier to do that and to avoid that imposter syndrome, because you're able to say like, good for you,
Yep.
not for me, or good for me, not for you, and really identify the difference
So
between the two.
powerful, so freaking powerful. And especially too what you said about the industries and you existing in that. Like every single one of you has a seat at the table. I always say. It's just a matter of like,
Yes.
are you willing to pull it out and sit down? That's where the healing comes in, the align like it you have to I truly believe that like there is healing involved to find alignment. Like without it, like you don't
Oh,
just wake
totally.
up one day, it's like, oh, I'm aligned. Like, no, you gotta dig through the weeds that are up here in your brain, dig through those thoughts to find that clarity, to find that alignment. It doesn't happen overnight. And it doesn't always happen from like a single coaching session. Like it takes time. Yeah, that's
Totally.
like a whole other hour conversation I'm sure we could get into. It takes time. So I love everything you've highlighted. This is so powerful. So I have two questions left for you. Number one is, what is something that you wish you could go back and tell yourself at the start of your business?
Ooh. You know what? I'm
Mm.
going to be really honest about this and say, don't trust that business coach who told you to
How
charge everything on a credit card. Because I'm
Yeah,
still paying off some of the
I
things
believe
that
it.
that business coach told me. But on like from a mindset standpoint, I think actually like one of the biggest things that I would say is just like trust that it
Mhm.
gets to be easy. And if it feels like a struggle, it's not
Yeah.
actually the right thing for you, because we are taught so much by our society and our environment and the conditioning that we have, and like
Mhm.
inner child and all of this shadow. And again, I'm so glad you talked about healing,
Yeah.
because this is a long game, right? Like you can look at your human design chart and see that you're meant to make decisions this way, but if you have been conditioned for the last, I don't know, 30 plus years of your life, it's going to be really hard to decondition that, even if you know the aligned
100%. Yep.
answer. And it's just really about like realizing that if something is a struggle, that's not a sign that you're on the right path, because a lot of times our subconscious brain believes that, right? Like we're heard like owning your own business is really difficult, most businesses fail within the first 5 years, like et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the thing is like, actually, if it feels really easy and it feels like, I can't tell you how many clients come to me and they're like, I need a repeatable sales strategy. And I'm like, okay, how have you been getting clients so far? And they tell me like, oh, this exact same way every single
Yeah.
time. I'm like, so you already have a
Right.
repeatable sales strategy. You
Yeah.
just don't trust it and you haven't leaned into it. You keep thinking I
Yeah.
have to do something else. And so like really that idea of like, no, I need to trust myself. And if something feels easy, and if I'm making client, like getting clients easily, or like I'm making progress or finding success in these easy
Mhm.
ways, trust that. That's
Oof,
not
I
like a
love that.
fluke.
That's such good advice and a particular emphasis on the credit card. Do not screw up your credit, guys. Don't
Oh my
do
God,
it.
no.
Don't. That is just shit advice, but unfortunately so many people give it. So many people are like, "Oh, just throw 20
Mm-hmm.
grand on a credit card and pay me for 3 months." It's like, "Please, anybody listening, don't. Please." It's but,
No,
so many
no.
people have done it. It's just it's crazy advice out there, but that is so helpful to hear, right? It's helpful to hear that you did do that, that you did receive that advice. Like, this is what the
Mhm.
power of these episodes is, like, listening to this and learning and, like, learning through people's journeys, through people's
Right.
stories. So my last question for you is, for everybody listening, where can they find you? How can they get in touch with you? And how can they work with you if they would like to be within your community and work with you?
Yeah, definitely. So I will say, first and foremost, I have a ton of free resources on my website. So I have my own podcast, the Badass Business Squad podcast, which we actually just recorded an
Yes.
interview. Like Gabrielle's going to be on it yesterday. So come and listen to that too. But it's primarily guest experts, some solo episodes talking all about highly implementable business advice, both in terms of mindset and in terms of like business tools. So we talk about everything from setting clients' boundaries, right? Like that really important type of mindset work, to
Mhm.
finances and like how to create a launch strategy and like those sorts of like really tangible things that you're like, I've never done this beforehand. Where can I get this help? Where can I get this insights? Um, I also have coaching via the Badass Business Squad. So now the podcast name makes sense. This is the community based coaching program. It's really high touch, really like intimate. Only 6 people can join at a time. But I love it because it's a combination of coaching and community and alignment and strategy and all of that great stuff. But also, like, if you ever just want to have a conversation, if you ever just want to connect on a human to human level, come slide into my DMs. My handle is so simple. It's Katrina.Widener. It's just my name. And like, I love it when people reach out to me there, ask me any questions, say, okay, you mentioned this human design thing. Where do I get started? I am happy to give you resources and support you. And really just be like that person that's able to say like, hey, no matter what happens, you will always get a human on the other end
Yes.
of this
Oh,
conversation.
I love that so much.
So
And everyone, the Katrina's handle and website is down below in the show notes. So click on that. Send her a DM if you feel called to. And thank you so much, Katrina, for hopping on and sharing all this awesome wisdom. Like, I cannot wait for everyone to listen to this and just hear your story of how you really navigated that toxic work environment to starting your business to pivoting and where you are now. It's very inspirational and it's beautiful.
well, thank you so much for all of that amazing compliments and also for having me on here. I love talking about this stuff. Again, I'm a super extrovert. Like,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much
Did
for
you
having
enjoy today's episode? If so, I would be super appreciative if you left a review and a rating and shared this with a friend so that I can continue to bring you value every single week. I'll see you next time.